So as we continue here, we've proven that beyond the shadow of a doubt that these so-called degree areas in universities and colleges did not exist at one point. Now, they didn't exist, but the knowledge of the health and safety, the wisdom of the traversing over these dangerous properties and these various dangers did exist, and that they were beyond the shadow of a doubt passed along through children. These advanced mechanisms in college, they didn't exist. In fact, much of the schooling didn't exist. But the knowledge did exist. So we have a series of parties removing intentionally the knowledge. So this brings about a series of additional understanding, because now we have people that keep thinking about making all these new laws and rules, but they're the ones responsible for removing the wisdom to begin with of the standard common sense knowledge that was imparted. In other words, they're creating a bunch of laws fraudulently. It is completely fraudulent mechanisms being designed. Massive numbers of mechanisms being designed, massive complications that never need to exist. So they create these huge master mechanisms and make them larger and larger by adding a whole bunch of stuff that does not need to exist. It's a continuous perpetuation of fraud intentionally, because the parties remove the most basic understanding in certain areas respective to these. And these are laws that they also coerced local governments into, respective to all the different given situations. Yet they'll desperately try to grasp some other type of knowledge of some kind of super duper high-end technological development that requires a certain type of obvious specialized knowledge as part of their standard excuses that they'll make, when it's clear that in progression and evolution of these arguments to get up to certain points, that these other items that we're already talking about, that there is nothing pertaining to these people's grasping of mass high-end technology dangers that respectively would pertain to their governance creations. So they make false arguments trying to make excuses to let themselves off the hook. So here, what do we have? It's called criminal intent. Criminal intent of the parties. And where does all this criminal intent repeatedly come from? It comes from long-term connectivity that goes right back to a series of the same type of college professors, the same parties connected to the deliberate engineering of mass weaponization of data that was purposely engineered to be short so that they could create a series of opportunities to control people and to destabilize people and to rob people. So, these people, when you do the intensive investigation, well, where did you learn this? Well, which school did you go to? Interesting. Okay, well, which teachers did you learn under? Okay, yeah. Well, which teachers did they learn under? And you start checking this, and it all ends up going back. You would be amazed how many times it goes back to European instrument flawed development understanding. So we have deep penetrative factors of parties who are connected to an original origin of deliberately engineering data to be weaponized against colonial constitutional capitalism and the Constitution of the United States and your individual rights as what? As investors and owners in our great land company, the Republic. So this is something that continuously keeps happening. And again, these people, as you quantify this, these people's literal actions are confessions in writing proving their actions. It sounds like, they make it sounds interesting, like they're moving forward, but the reality is it's all rooted back in a different place where they've deliberately removed something or blocked something that was supposed to be part of the normal sequence of instillment and understanding. So they're basically making more and more people stupider. This is what's happening with our educational system. It's what's been happening in our educational system. Los Angeles is perhaps the prime example of how education is moving backwards, how they're spending $480K on 13 years of schooling, and you end up with a 56% burger flipper rate placement, job placement. There's no excuse for that. Basically, in other words, spend $500,000, and the fruits of this end up making a burger flipper? This is fraud beyond comprehension. And it's not just that. There's all these other areas that have also have people that were brought up forced to go to school, and they're forced into being shortchanged. They try to go someplace. Oh, you're breaking the law. You can't do that. It's a health and safety problem in this area. You can't even walk through here. You're not qualified. What? Yeah, you're not qualified. So they're both attacking you, saying, well, you're not a qualified engineer, dude. You can't walk over in these areas. It's dangerous, and you don't have a certification for that. We just handled that part of the argument. And so this is an area in law after law after law that they have created deliberately through long-term mechanisms. And as you check this mindset, you keep repeatedly finding that they're basically beholden to foreign structures, and that these parties diabolically oppose colonial constitutional capitalism, which means that them taking the oath of office or running for office, taking the oath to run for office, that the parties are in violation of their constitutional oath. They're lying about being loyal. So they're taking their constitutional oath falsely. And this is quantifiable. You can check this and see how these people did this. So, because this is a different area, this is not about running around to a bunch of Hollywood people that were ordered by the people who want the film made to say, be nice to these people. They have money. They're investors. And you don't have any idea who these people are. We don't know who these people are. Well, be nice to them. And now they're nice to them, and someone else makes a comment later on. You end up with McCarthyism. Well, yes, but you were associating with these people. They seem like nice people. We were actually ordered to be nice to them because they were apparently investors to invest into the film project. Let's not get ridiculous here. Let's not get ridiculous here at all. That's a completely different situation where you'd obviously be harassing people who are simply going through life. They're trying to get a job done, and their bosses walk up to them and say, "Hey, look, man, we got to make sure we get enough funding on this deal. Okay, look, you're one of the main actors, or you do this or you do that, and help us make these people happy. We need them to cut the check, open it up. Okay." That's a business in a different way. And you don't know, you have no obligation to say, I'm sorry, can I shake hands or talk with this person? I have to put them through a national security clearance before I can shake their hand and talk to them, right? Don't be ridiculous. That was part of the problem with McCarthyism, asserting all kinds of things on relationships that were absolutely ridiculous as they were trying to grind people into stuff. However, we have a completely different situation when people are standing up and they're claiming that they're swearing an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States as they're running for office, and their plan is to go uptown and jack the rich folks. as they have a bunch of documents in their hand that were developed by European interest, in which this material is all connected to deliberately engineered governance material designed to destabilize people's lives, people's businesses, and government. It diabolically opposes the Constitution of the United States. These people are committing treason as they're lying. They're lying about them being having an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States. This is actionable. This is a different area. It's completely actionable. It's like, I can sit there and tell you, yeah, you guys are on the stand now. Look, I'm just going to tell you, okay, you're not some actor or singer or little expert on some film deal where you're ordered to be nice to these people as potential investors so the project can come down. No, we're talking about government here. We're talking about the need for national security. We're talking about highly important items, and you're working with refined data tooling. Refined data that was designed deliberately to diabolically oppose. That's a completely different situation. It's very actionable. You know better. You people are of superior knowledge. You know better. You knew better to begin with. But you're going to bow your neck and continue forward anyhow, creating these mass false conundrums and false laws that never need to exist. Many of them which you falsely engineered. Running around stealing people's cars. Oh, these people's cars are junk. 31 years in a row of an ascending asset value, and you're calling it junk. It can't be an ascending value asset and be junk. Now you're not just discerning, well, that's our opinion. No, it's not your opinion. You're incompetent, and as we mathematically reverse check you quantification-wise, you are a diabolical opposing agent to the Constitution of the United States, and you're involved deeply in criminal intent.